And we have a couple great guest speakers here tonight and really appreciate them coming and spending some time with us. We have Devon Rust. She's going to let you know some good information about the Division of Vocational Rehab. And then Larissa Cummings, she's going to talk a little bit more about getting into some of the specifics with work incentive planning assistance. A lot of us just know it as WIPA, so try to remember all that, but we're going to learn a lot more about both of those programs tonight. So Devon, go ahead and let us know a little bit more information about DVR.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. As Lisa and Donna have said, my name is Devon, and I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor with the Alaska Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. I work out of one of our Anchorage offices, and so we do have offices in most of the hub communities in the state. We have 2 offices in Anchorage. We have a satellite office in Eagle River. We have one in Fairbanks, another one in Wasilla, and one in Kenai, one in Juneau, and then another satellite office in Sitka. But we do serve communities throughout the state. So if you're in Alaska, we're here to help you. As a vocational rehabilitation counselor, or VRC for short, that's a long job title, I know. What I do is I help people with disabilities who may need a little extra help with either getting a job or keeping a job or even advancing in a job. And so when I say people with disabilities, I'm talking about physical disabilities, mental health disabilities, behavioral disabilities, cognitive, developmental disabilities, something that is providing a challenge or multiple challenges with getting and keeping a job, but with some help, that's possible. And so as a counselor, I'm here to help for somebody that is interested in working. I know I'm here to talk specifically about transition. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on programs that are related more to students and transitioning students. But a lot of what I'm saying does apply to all of the people that we serve. I'm going to share my screen. So there's typically 2 ways that we work with students. One is for students who are not necessarily transitioning out of school, but are thinking about preparing for that time of getting more independence. For those students, we have what's called pre-employment transition services. And then for students that are going to be leaving high school or leaving the school system, we have transition services, or what we would typically kind of how we would typically serve anybody coming through DVR. We would open up a case, kind of figure out what might be a good employment goal, and then see what we can do to help you get there. So, but first I'm going to talk just a little bit about those pre-employment transition services, just so you're aware of what those are. So all of the information that I'm going to talk about tonight is on our Alaska DVR website. Probably the easiest way to find that is by Googling Alaska DVR, and DVR is short for Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. It is a statewide page, so all of the information on here applies to all the communities in the state of Alaska. So pre-employment transition services, these are services that really help students prepare for that time of transition. So that can be things like actual paid work experience. We do have in most communities the opportunity for students to get some experience, something to put on their resume, but also to kind of understand what the expectations are in a work environment. So we have that. We also have some things that students can do throughout the school year. And this is something that is available to any student that receives services through an IEP or a 504, or even a student that maybe doesn't receive those services, but likely has a disability. So it's the eligibility for these programs is pretty broad. And these are programs that aren't necessarily provided for an individual student. So usually DVR will pay a school district or somebody working within a school or a community organization to provide some of these programs. And these are programs, the first one here is Jobs Club, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but just kind of to give you an idea of kind of what some of these are. Jobs Club is for learning about soft skills and learning about kind of some independence type skills. So it could be anything from learning how to write a resume and prepare for an interview to learning about budgeting. So skills that will help a student become more independent as they get ready to look for work. We also have School Store. And if you ever go to our website, there's some videos on this pre-employment transition page that'll give you some examples of some of the school stores that students have opened up with DVR funding in their communities. This teaches about entrepreneurship and small business concepts. So typically, again, a teacher or a staff member at a school or with a community organization will go through a curriculum on kind of how to plan for setting up a business. What are some things you have to think about in order to do so? And then the students will actually, a group of students will actually create a small business and hopefully make some money and sell some things at their school. We have transition camps that we provide in partnership with some other agencies throughout the year for Alaskan students. And so these are camps where students go and different agencies come and provide information about how they can help students transition. So DVR will be there. Some other community agencies will probably be at those as well. And then the other one that a lot of schools find interesting is the Pathways program. So Pathways is for kind of hands-on learning. So building things, creating things to sell or to create employment opportunities. So these are, and then of course the summer work programs, which I talked about a little bit. I know here in Anchorage, I think the ARC of Anchorage and 9-Star are going to be providing some summer work experience opportunities where students can actually get paid to work in the community. It is short term, so it's just during the summer. And then they're also going through a curriculum of work readiness. So learning how to talk to employers, how to network, how to build a resume, those kinds of things. So those are pre-employment training services that the DVR provides. So somebody wouldn't necessarily open up a full case with a DVR counselor, but they would receive those services and that program would be funded by DVR. So why might somebody who is transitioning out of high school want assistance from DVR? So typically somebody who is interested in going to work is able to work competitively with some assistance. And when I say competitively, I'm talking about jobs that are actually available out in the community. So where somebody would be getting paid what anybody else would be getting paid to do that work. And where you're working in an integrated setting. So you're not just working with people with disabilities, you're working in an actual employment setting. And so if that's something that sounds like your student, you might want to connect with DVR. And so I'll talk a little bit about kind of what that process might look like. And then some examples of some ways that DVR helps transitioning students. And then how to get that process started, how to apply for services through DVR. So typically when somebody is transitioning out of high school and they come to DVR, there's a few ways that they connect with us. They get a referral from their teacher or a staff member at their school. Sometimes that can be a special education teacher. It could be a school counselor, a nurse. We get referrals from many different staff at schools. Sometimes we come and talk to students at schools and they decide that this is something that would be helpful for them. And so they refer themselves. And sometimes they connect through their families. So there's lots of different ways that people come to DVR. And so there's no one right way to approach the DVR office in your community. So once somebody is referred to DVR, we'll sit down with them either in person or over Zoom, even over the phone. Sometimes we go to the school, if the school will let us come and we talk to the student there, it's kind of nice because they're already there. And so each school has a counselor that works with them. So the counselor comes to the school and talks to the student, or we meet them either over Zoom or in person in one of our offices. And just kind of get an idea of why they're interested in getting some help from DVR, how they think a counselor can assist them in getting and keeping a job. And then if we talk a little bit about how DVR helps transitioning students, and then if that student and their family decide, or that student and their team decide that, this is something that they want to start a case with, then the next step is for them to apply. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can apply for services with DVR in a little bit. But once somebody applies, then we set up a time to do an intake appointment. And so that's a little bit more extensive than just kind of that initial conversation. That's where we kind of get to know you a little bit better. What kind of work or volunteer experience do you have? Tell us a little bit about school. Tell us just kind of your general background. And then we talk a little bit about your disability or disabilities, and kind of get a better understanding of how those impact you in your day-to-day life. And really the purpose of all of that is just to kind of really get the whole picture of who you are. Because even though we do serve people with disabilities, we are all people with lots of different, pieces to who we are. And so we want to make sure that we're really serving the whole person. So once we do that, then our next role as counselors is to start gathering information. So we are an eligibility program. And so that's kind of that next step is the counselor has to determine if somebody is eligible for DVR services. I get a lot of questions about eligibility, and I don't want people to worry too much about, am I going to be eligible? Am I not going to be eligible? When I'm looking at whether or not somebody is eligible, I'm asking two questions. One is, do you have a disability or disabilities that make it difficult to get or keep a job without some assistance? And then if that's the case, would the services that DVR provides be helpful in getting and keeping a job? So if I can say yes to those two questions, then I find somebody eligible. A counselor has up to 60 days to determine if somebody's eligible from the time they apply for services. It doesn't necessarily take that long, but we are gathering things like medical records, school records. Sometimes somebody comes to us and they know that something's wrong, but they don't have, maybe a specific diagnosis, or we just need some more information. And so sometimes we'll have somebody get diagnostic information as well. So even though 60 days seems a long time to make that decision, there's some things that are happening there that do take a little while. So if I do find that somebody is eligible for DVR services, then we start putting a plan together. And we have 90 days to do that. Again, that does seem like a long time, but we want to make sure that what we're looking at is going to be a good long-term fit. So that plan is going to have a job goal, or what type of job the client is interested in. So we don't necessarily get to make the decision. We don't say, hey, you should go be a pilot, or you should go be an accountant, or you should go, be something else. We really provide an opportunity for somebody to make that decision. Now, as a counselor, I do have to, agree that that's going to be a good goal for that individual. But while I'm looking at that eligibility, the client is learning more about themselves and their characteristics, their interests, their work values, their work-related strengths, and then looking at kind of jobs that are out there in Alaska, looking at the labor market. Are there a lot of good jobs in this field that I seem to be interested in, or is this going to pay what I'm looking for? So kind of looking at who you are and the jobs that are out there and really trying to find that really good fit. So once we agree on an occupational goal, then we put that plan together. It's going to have services that DVR will provide to help somebody get to meet that goal. And I'll talk a little bit about what some of those services might be. And then it's going to also have responsibilities that the client is going to have. And I really like to kind of be upfront about this, because I think it's really important that people understand that, yes, DVR is helping, but we're only there for a little while. And so you're going to have that job hopefully for a long time. And so there's some responsibilities that are going to be really helpful in kind of moving this process along. So that, and it's just kind of good practice for, being in a job and kind of having those responsibilities on your own. So the main responsibilities are maintaining your health, meeting any doctor's recommendations or, therapy recommendations, just following doctor's orders, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, not just in the doctor's office, but at home, sleeping, getting good night's sleep, eating well, exercising, things that you can be doing to prepare yourself for that transition into, having a job. The other responsibilities are typically things like, coming to meetings on time, checking in with your counselor, those sort of things. So once we put a plan together, then we start providing those services and hopefully have a good job outcome that somebody will be, will enjoy for a long time. Once somebody is employed, then DVR doesn't just go away. We do stick around for the first 3 months or 90 days of employment. And that way we're still available if something comes up, if there's something new that needs to be addressed, just to make sure that there's some stability in that job before we step back. So at 90 days of employment, we typically close a case, but we don't, we're here, if you find that you want to advance or, something happens with your job and you need DVR assistance again to get a job, then we're here and you're welcome to, see if it might be worth reopening a case. So that's what the process typically does look like with working with DVR for transition. Any questions about that process before I talk about kind of some of the ways that we help people?
How do you guys handle self-employment if someone comes to you for self-employment help?
Yeah, so we do have people that are interested in self-employment. And so we, we help people with kind of determining if that's going to be a good fit for them. So we do have counselors that can kind of provide some evaluation or assessment around, some of the things involved in self-employment, being able to, even with some assistance, kind of put a business plan together, being able to budget. Are you able to kind of learn those skills that are really important in starting a business? So yes, we do help with that. We want to make sure that that's going to be a good fit with somebody's, strengths, that entrepreneurship piece. But yes, we can help people with setting up a business. We would probably work very closely with the Alaska Small Business Development Center, some other agencies who really specialize in that. But we would definitely make that connection for that individual. Does that answer your question? All right. So how does DVR actually, help people with getting and keeping jobs? So, the big thing that so let me take a step back. So everybody's unique. Every time we work with an individual, their plan and the help that they receive is going to look a little bit different. As I mentioned before, we really try to get to know the whole person and make sure that we're helping them with getting a job, keeping a job, but also kind of preparing them for that big transition. And also kind of helping them kind of make sure that kind of all those other pieces, are in place. Because if you're working and you don't have childcare, or you haven't really thought about how you're going to get to work, or, you're just not feeling your best. Those are all things that can really impact you on the job. And so, we want to make sure that we're addressing all of those things. And so we do that through counseling and guidance. And so that is regular meetings with your counselor to talk about that transition, kind of how you're doing, guidance about, putting that plan together, what might be some things that you might need to kind of work through to make sure that you're really ready to go to work. And then we connect individuals with other agencies, like Larissa was asking about with setting up a small business. That might not be something that we have the best expertise in, but we'll definitely find out who does. And here in Alaska, that would typically be the Alaska Small Business Development Center. There's other services that people need to get ready for employment. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're connecting clients with those agencies. Some people might need some short-term or possibly some long-term training to be competitive in applying for jobs. So really, the services that we provide are centered around an employment goal. So we never provide training, or we never help with training for the sake of training. It really has to be tied or a requirement of an employment goal. We can sometimes help people with assistive technology if that's something that they need to keep a job, or ergonomic equipment. Some people just need some tools or some work clothes to, go out and interview or to start a job. That's something that we can possibly help with as well. We also help with preparing for jobs, so applying for jobs. If somebody needs assistance with filling out applications, with putting together a resume, we may provide that directly, or we may work with a community provider to help with that. Sometimes, or a lot of times, people need help with interviewing or just some practice interviewing. That's something that we can help with as well. Some people need somebody to kind of help them learn the skills and the tasks in a new job. And so that might look like having a job coach. And so for an individual that needs a job coach, we might be able to help with that either short term, or if somebody needs a job coach there kind of all the time to keep them, focused and on track in a job, or just for safety, somebody there to kind of keep an eye on them in that job. That's something that we might be able to help with as well. And I get actually a lot of questions about that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because that's something I tend to get a lot of questions about. And then another big service that a lot of people benefit from is something Larissa is going to actually talk a little bit more about, but that's benefits counseling. And so if you are receiving Social Security or Medicaid or both, or public assistance, you probably know that working can impact those benefits. And we really want people to have as much information as possible so that they can make good decisions about things like, how often they can work, how many hours or how much money they can make before it starts impacting those benefits, because we know how important having those is. So, we don't directly provide, but we contract with somebody to provide a benefit analysis. And so they go through and look at all of those benefits, your Social Security, Medicaid, public assistance, and kind of calculate how much you can make before it starts impacting those benefits in different ways. Any questions so far about some of those services? That's not an exhaustive list of services. Those are just kind of some examples of ways that we help people with getting a job or keeping a job. Some people might need help with soft skills training, kind of learning how to interact with people in the workplace, or just kind of what those employer expectations are around professionalism. That's something that we definitely help with as well. Any questions about any of those services? And we can get creative. Yes, Donna.
I have to remember to unmute myself. Back when my son was applying, there was a program at the ARC, job skills assessment. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they did because we didn't get to go through it, but things that would help someone determine what they might be good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked about that. So here in Anchorage, we actually have counselors that focus just on that kind of assessment and evaluation. So kind of learning about what those skills are and what your interests are, and kind of comparing those with different jobs so that you can see, yeah, this is something that I'm interested in, and that I'm able to do with maybe some assistance or some training. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that was available, because we actually did have a small piece of it. I thought mail delivery, say in a big business building, would have been a good job for my son. So they tried him to see if he could read the letters, put them in the right slots, things like that. Yeah,
so I actually work in the Anchorage office that on the east side of Anchorage. Again, there's 2 offices right now in Anchorage. And our office actually has a whole evaluation center. And so, yeah, we do have some of those kind of hands-on assessments where you can kind of see, how, finger dexterity, or how fast can I, maneuver through certain things. All kinds of different things that we can evaluate. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So here in Anchorage, we have that. If you're in a community that doesn't, sometimes we will fly you in to a community that does. Or there might be a partner agency that specifically provides that evaluation. And so we would partner with them to do that. Sometimes people benefit more from assessments kind of in a work situation. And so sometimes we'll, have somebody, we'll set up a short-term situation, what's called a situational assessment. We'll kind of evaluate how somebody's doing in an actual work environment for a couple of weeks, just to kind of get an idea of kind of what those needs are as well. It just depends again on the individual and kind of what would be the best thing to look at to help them be successful. Yeah. So I did want to talk about job supports, or people usually refer to as a job coach, because I do get a lot of questions about that. And so again, that would be somebody that kind of needs an individual there to help them either learn a new job or just be there for supervision and safety, help them kind of stay focused. So DVR does help with job coaching. So that does come with a cost, and DVR can help with that, with the cost of that short term. So a lot of times people will pay for that through a Medicaid waiver. And so the Medicaid waiver would kind of take over the cost of the job coach once they've been in that job for a little while. If somebody has a waiver, typically DVR would help with paying the cost of a job coach for the first few weeks until there's a little bit of stability there. They're kind of picking things up, and then the waiver would take over the cost of that service. So if somebody doesn't have a waiver, I definitely recommend, not just for employment, but for just kind of all areas of independent living. If you think that they would be eligible for a waiver, definitely start that process with Stone Soup Group if you haven't already, because that's not just important for employment, but for all types of independent living. But definitely when it comes to supported employment, DVR can help. And, I don't want anybody to not apply for services because they don't have a waiver. But I just like to let people know, we can provide supports for a short amount of time. And so what I don't want is for somebody to start that process and then have to stop. And so we really try to get that timing right. So if you do have that waiver, if you think a job coach is going to be something that a transitioning student would need to be successful, that's something that if you have the waiver, great. If not, don't let that stop you from coming to DVR. We can have a conversation about the timing. Some people just really need just somebody there kind of initially to learn a task, and then that they can really fade that job coaching away. For somebody like that, there are some what's called Ability One programs, or kind of sites where there's that support built in to that place. And so that's something that we can talk about as well. But those are some ways, that people typically kind of use the job coaching or the job support. Any questions about that? I usually get quite a few. Yes, Dave, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, could you explain a little bit about the waiver program? I have no concept of what that's all about.
Oh yeah, I apologize. So, Lisa, or Donna, might be able to kind of talk about the waiver in kind of bigger picture terms. But yeah, so typically for somebody that, might benefit from some services to live more independently. So somebody that might need things like day hab, or a job coach, or assisted living, just somebody that might not be able to provide kind of those daily living tasks completely independently, but maybe with some assistance they can. A waiver can help, a Medicaid waiver can help with that. And Lisa is definitely more the expert on that than I am. But that's where you kind of have to apply for that. And there's a whole process for it. Stone Soup Group does have navigators that can help with that process. But there's a whole bunch of steps involved in obtaining the waiver, and there's usually a waiting list for the waiver. So the sooner that somebody applies, the better. Lisa, what am I leaving out that would be important to know about that?
You pretty much addressed a lot of it. The key thing that you mentioned is getting it started now. So if this is something that you feel your loved one could benefit from, it's just going through our intake at Stone Soup Group and then getting connected to a developmental disability resource connection navigator, and they can explain the Medicaid waiver process. It could also be one of those things that if someone is going through DVR, they might not necessarily need that level of support. So you can always go through DVR door first. And if that's something based off of their assessment, they feel that would be beneficial or really help support that individual, then you can come back through Stone Soup Group stores and explore the Medicaid waiver process. But Devon, you definitely nailed it on the head. It is a process, and it does take a while to get through that process. So if it's something that can be considered sooner than later, that's very important.
Okay, thank you for the information.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is that
I
Deep House
wanted-
and Dave? Or I'm sorry, I saw Dave's hand up, but I don't know who's.
Sorry, Dave.
Oh no, that's okay. And I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that we went through DVR several years ago, and they were awesome about placing our son in an employment position. And then with COVID, he got laid off for a year and went back to the same company but a different location. And before that happened, we kind of wondered if DVR would support another interview process had he not, but he was able to get. But we kind of questioned, would they be an available resource in an event like that where they did lose employment?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that in that case, so I'm going to take a little step back, and then I'm going to hopefully answer your question. So if you have a Medicaid waiver and you or your loved one has a Medicaid waiver and they're interested in employment, they have to go through DVR to use the Medicaid waiver. So you have to come through DVR because Medicaid is a funder of last resort. So in the situation that you're discussing where you've already come through DVR, depending on the length of time, you may just already be able to access the waiver. I would check with your care coordinator. Regardless, if you wanted to come through DVR and go through that process again, that's absolutely fine. But sometimes, and particularly with COVID, this has happened with a few people, is that they were laid off because of COVID specifically, and there wasn't too much of a gap in employment, and so they were able to just kind of pick up with the waiver. They didn't have to come through DVR. So that would definitely be a question to have, or a conversation to have with the care coordinator, because I don't know if they would need to come through DVR again, but the care coordinator should know. So if they do need to come through DVR again, definitely I'll put our contact information up. Definitely reach out to us. If you don't have to go through DVR to access the waiver, then that's a decision that you get to make. If you want to come back through DVR, that's absolutely fine. If you prefer not to go through that whole process and just access the waiver directly, then that's okay too. Does that answer your question? I know it's not an exact definite answer.
I'll do a little
depends.
more reading about the waiver process. We didn't do that, and I think he went through DVR probably about 8 years ago. So
Okay.
we don't have a care coordinator or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely reach out to wherever your local office is, and I'll show you where you can find that out if you're not in one of those kind of communities that has a physical office there.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave.
So, Devon, do I understand you saying that that DVR will provide a job coach? Is that just on a temporary basis, or is that more permanent?
So it depends on the needs of the individual working. So if somebody needed a job coach to just kind of get started learning a new job, maybe for a few weeks, kind of understanding the tasks and kind of picking up that competitive speed, of doing a job, then we would probably just provide a temporary job coach. If somebody needed that more long-term support or somebody kind of checking in from time to time, then that would be more kind of long-term. And so then at some point you'd want to have that waiver in place to cover the cost of that, because DVR again is limited in how much we can fund that.
Okay, so I know that our son with Down syndrome has a waiver, and we're utilizing it now for his day hab. And we went through DVR a couple, 3 years ago, and he was found ineligible. And so what we've done is, right when COVID hit in 2020 is when Jeremiah graduated. And so he interviewed at Assets because they had a position. He loves to shred papers, so they had a shredding operation there. And unfortunately, with COVID, it shut down, and we've checked back periodically, and for whatever reason, we're not getting any kind of help whatsoever. We are utilizing our care coordinator with all this as well. We've since gone to the ARC through their support employment with Danny there, and he tells us that he can't hire job coaches, and as much as he tries. And so essentially what I did about 6 months ago is I set up Jeremiah in his own little small business, and he has a contract with a customer. We go twice a week and to their place. They have a shredder there that we use, and he's shredding papers, but I still don't and I'm his acting job coach. And so what we really need, I mean, we have an established business, we have a client, we have everything going. What we really need is a job coach, and he's pretty low functioning. He needs someone there for safety, to keep him on task, to make sure he doesn't put too many papers in the shredder at one time and jam it. Make sure that paper clips are taken out, sort of thing, and just basically overseeing everything. I mean, it's pretty easy. If I can do it, anybody could do it. It's just that, we just can't find a job coach, and we're all very frustrated by that. My care coordinator tells me that he's having trouble with other clients he has as well with this. So, I'm looking for, any agency that can help us with a job coach.
Yeah. And I can't speak to, the staffing, at other agencies. But I know that I know that that's a challenge right now with a lot of companies and agencies is having people there that can provide the services. Anybody can apply to become a job coach, either through one of those agencies or they can do it on their own. If they want to help clients of DVR, they do kind of have to go through the process with DVR, but there's a training that the state offers, I think for the Center for Human Development, that kind of trains people to become a job coach or a service provider, if you know somebody that might be interested in that. But yeah, I know that that's a challenge for a lot of people, is just having the stuff available to provide a service.
Is it possible that we could go through DVR once again? I know he was found ineligible before. I think the reasoning, you'd have to look, we worked with you, Devon, so I don't know it was just that there wasn't a program that DVR had that would help Jeremiah. And but now if DVR is providing job coaches, maybe there is a program through Division of Voc Rehab that we can utilize. Do we reapply? Do I have my care coordinator reapply with you, or?
So yeah, so you're always welcome to reapply. Once you've applied through DVR, if somebody has been found ineligible, then they can access, I know this isn't answering your question, but just want to make sure I explain this, is that somebody can just access the waiver directly for those services. So DVR does not have job coaches. If somebody needed like short-term job coaching, we might be able to help with that for just a really short period of time, just to kind of help somebody learn the job. But if somebody needed that supervision there, we don't really have, that's not something that we do directly. We partner with another agency like Assets or the ARC, at least here in Anchorage, to provide that service. So that's not really going to necessarily change the availability, which is unfortunate. I know that that's a challenge for a lot of people, but right now there's just not a lot of staffing for that. If someone, and I can, I can talk to you kind of more about your specific situation, but I know that here in Anchorage, like Assets has contract sites where they have job coaches there. But we can talk a little bit more. You're welcome to apply for services through DVR again. But it's not really going to address the lack of staffing that you're coming up against for job coaches, unfortunately. I wish I had a better answer. Anything else that you had questions about, Dave?
No, not at this time.
Okay, I am happy to talk with you. I'm going to put my contact information up and we can chat a little bit more and see if we can kind of problem solve. Yeah. I do see a question, and I know Larissa, I don't want to take up Larissa's time too. There's a question about pre-employment services or training. What does that look like for high school age students in Alaska who turn 18 and are not ready for supported employment? So that would depend. If somebody's 18 and they are going to be leaving high school, either they graduated or they've completed high school, then we would be looking at transition. Pre-employment transition is for somebody that's going to be going back to school the following year. Does that answer your question, Mike? So that could be someone who is 18, or is younger than 18, or is 18 and is not going to be leaving the school system yet.
Well, that was great, Devon. It looks like you answered his question.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Any other questions? I just really briefly, if somebody is interested in applying, I want to show you where you can do that online, or how you can contact an office to apply, either like through a paper application, or we can email one. Okay, so this is the Alaska DVR homepage. So again, you Google Alaska DVR. This is the first option that comes up, or labor.alaska.gov/DVR. Right on the homepage is the link for starting an application. Definitely recommend watching the orientation video and kind of looking at some of this information before starting the online application. It'll give you kind of a better picture of kind of what it looks like to work with DVR from the perspective of somebody that has. And then once you've done that, then click on the Start Your Online Application Here link. I just want to let people know, I don't think there's a way to stop and come back to an application. It's a little lengthy, so set aside some time to do it. If you don't want to fill out the online application, that's okay. We can email an application, we can mail an application, you can come into a DVR office or call us on the phone, and we can kind of get that process started, with you that way too. Any questions about that? I'm going to just put the contact DVR offices. So over here on these links over here on the side, you can get some more information about all of those things that I've talked about. This option here, contact DVR offices. This will tell you if you are not in one of those communities where we actually have an office. This will give you the contact information for the office that does serve your community.
Thanks, Devon. All right, Larissa, we will go ahead and give you the mic.
All right. So first of all, just to introduce myself, I am the project director for the Work Incentives Planning and Assistance, or WIPA project, through the University of Alaska Anchorage Center for Human Development. And we have a really narrow focus. We can't help people apply for benefits. We can't help people appeal a decision that Social Security has made. We just have that narrow focus of assisting beneficiaries who are working and want to know how that is going to impact their benefits. And so while that sounds very simple, it's actually quite complicated. We're going to talk first about how Social Security defines disability, and basically there are two stages to that. One is not be able to engage in any substantial gainful activity, meaning work, paid or unpaid, really, and because of a medically determinable physical or mental impairment. So they have two halves to that. Somebody could actually have the second half, but be working above SGA, above substantial gainful activity, and they would then be found to not be disabled. So that's just important to understand if you're going in to apply for Social Security. Substantial gainful activity is not just a number, it's actually a decision that Social Security makes. They apply whatever rules and procedures are available, and then make a decision about the value of an individual's work. One of the first things that they look at is the amount of money they make, how much they're earning. And for this number changes every year, but in 2022, if an individual makes over $1,350 a month gross, then they might actually be considered to be earning over SGA. And gainful work activity is work that's performed for pay or profit. So it could be work that's performed as an employee or as a self-employed. Work of a nature that would generally be performed for pay or profit. So sometimes people go and do volunteer work and they think that they're not earning money, so therefore they won't lose their benefits, but that's not the case. If Social Security happens to notice or catch wind of the fact that a person is volunteering on a regular basis in a position that could be considered anywhere in the United States in any company to be paid for. So let's say maybe a greeter at a museum being a volunteer position, but you could be a greeter at Walmart and be paid for it, right? So Social Security would actually give value to that. And if it was above that level, then even though you're not getting any money, they could say, well, you're able to work at that level, so therefore you're not disabled. We're not going to consider you disabled, right? So it's just important to know how Social Security looks at those things. They have a little bit different lens when they're looking at that. There are some work incentives, however, that can change that. And that's where we come in, because we verify which benefit the person is receiving, and then we kind of educate and counsel them on applicable work incentives that might actually bring that income that they're earning down so that it's under SGA. There are two different programs, and I'm only going to talk about SSI tonight because I wasn't really sure what we would have, but usually we have people mostly on SSI, and I don't have time to cover both programs at all. I don't even really have time to cover this one. So I'm going to really wing through it quickly. SSI is a needs-based program. Eligibility depends on having a medical disability and being unemployed or earning under that SGA amount and having limited resources. If a transition age youth under age 18 is receiving SSI, then when they turn 18, there's what they call age 18 redetermination, where they redetermine if that youth is still disabled using adult standards. So they have different factors that they use for adults. So that's something you need to know about if you have a kiddo that's under 18, is that when they turn 18, they're going to go through that age 18 redetermination. The SSI benefit amount is based on the federal benefit rate, which changes every year. And for 2022, it's $841 a month for an individual. Another important thing to note here is that it's $1,261 a month for a couple. So if two people are receiving SSI and they get married or they live together as married, they're going to get less money as a couple than they get individually as individuals. The reasoning behind that is you're sharing rent, you're sharing utilities, you're sharing other expenses. And so you shouldn't need as much money. That's kind of the reasoning. It doesn't really make sense because in this day and age, you need more money, but that's how it's set up. There isn't any waiting period when you apply for SSI. If you're found to be eligible, then it starts right away. And you're also found to be eligible for Medicaid. There's also an Alaska state supplement called Adult Public Assistance that a lot of people that receive SSI are also eligible for. So that can also be applied for. Social Security considers 3 categories of income. They look at unearned income, which could be SSDI, it could be the child disability benefit, it could be veterans benefits. There's a lot of other ways that somebody could have unearned income, and there aren't any good work incentives for unearned income. So they take $20 off and that's it. The rest they count. So when Social Security is figuring out if a person is earning that substantial gainful activity or that SGA, they are going to count a certain amount of income. For unearned income, they count almost all of it, right? All but $20. For earned income, they will count only about half of it. And they will also count food or shelter in lieu of wages. So if a kiddo is living at home with a parent, they're going to take off about 1/3 of that check because they figure that they don't need it because their parents are providing, or even anybody is providing that food and shelter. Now, a lot of parents actually set up a rental agreement and have them pay rent. And then Social Security takes that into consideration. If they're paying their own way, then they'll get the full benefit check. There are some excluded and exempt sources of income, such as food stamps or government rental assistance, energy assistance, scholarships, and some of those things that they don't count at all. But typically, when it comes to wages or earned income, Social Security only counts about half of that. There is a website called Disability 101 for Alaska, and that has detailed information, detailed articles with information about SSI and adult public assistance. Those two kind of go hand in hand because they have a lot of the same work incentive rules and eligibility rules. There's a good article in there with detailed information about SSDI and another article regarding health benefits. There's also a benefits and work estimator, as well as mini calculators that are embedded within the articles. It's a quite in-depth website. And then there's a section for get expert help and referral. And I'm going to actually go to that website right now. All right, so this is the website. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see this list here. These are where you'll find the articles about health benefits, about Social Security disability, which is SSDI. Child disability benefit comes under that as well. And then SSI and adult public assistance article is here. This is a really robust calculator over here called the estimator. And that is where you can plug in information about your work and your benefits, and it will give you kind of a big picture of how that work is going to impact your benefits. It is kind of tricky. If you put garbage in, you'll get garbage out. I've had people having trouble using it because you can't guess and you can't leave something blank. And so the good thing is you can save a session. So if you're in the middle of it and you go, oh, I don't know that. I don't know that information. You can save the session and then come back and sign in and open your session and continue. So you can do that, but it's not the easiest one. For people with SSI, I have another one that I'm going to show you really quickly. But one last section that I want to point out on this website is the Get Expert Help. And I would say this is probably the articles and the Get Expert Help are probably the most valuable part of this website for a parent or for anybody who receives any kind of public benefits. Here you can, if you've got questions about benefits and work, you click on that and it gives you the link to our website and it gives you my contact information for the Alaska WIPA project. If you've got non-benefit questions, there's the Aging and Disability Resource Center. You can contact Independent Living Center. If you have questions about SSI and SSDI, there's Social Security's information and the Ticket to Work helpline. And also, once again, the WIPA project. If you've got questions about adult public assistance, that's a benefit that's offered by the state. That's a state supplement. So there's your Division of Public Assistance. So it's a really great place to find all of those agencies where you can just click on the link and go to their website. And then from there, find your answers or find out how to contact someone. And so it goes like that. I'm just going to go ahead and move down. I want to show you one more thing on this website. We're going to have a pretend scenario so that it maybe will hopefully make sense to you. There's a calculator on here. It's the second one down. It's called SSI and APA benefit calculation. I love this calculator. We're going to have a pretend scenario. We have Sandra who doesn't have any unearned income, right? So there's no veterans benefits, no unearned income. So we're not going to even put anything in there, okay? But she is getting a job and she is going to be earning $1,300 a month gross wages. And so you just plug that in, you plug in the monthly income, and it's going to automatically take out these work incentives. I want to point one thing out. If she had unearned income, there is this $20 general exclusion. Remember I said that's the only work incentive. It's not even a work incentive. It's the only deduction that Social Security allows for unearned income. They provide much more robust work incentives for work, money that's earned from work. So, but if you don't have unearned income and you haven't used that exclusion up here, they do actually then allow you to use it down here. You can only use it in one place. So there you have the $20 exclusion. There's another earned income exclusion. And then there's some other work incentives that we don't have time to get into tonight, but you can take that. Then the next automatic work incentive that Social Security applies is the divide by 2. So they do what's called the 1/2 disregard. And so really that's why you can tell people if you're on SSI and you're earning money, Social Security will only count about half of your income. So they're only going to count $607, right? Of that $1,300 that she's making. And so then here, step 3 is just where you add up all of the countable income, the unearned and the earned. All right. There's another work incentive there that if you have that would apply there. Step 4 is where it does the calculation for you. The total SSI maximum benefit is $841. So they're going to subtract that total countable income, which is $607.50. And they're going to adjust that SSI check down to $233.50, right? Which sometimes freaks people out because they're like, oh, no, I can't afford to have less check, right? And at this point, at that level of earning, it's not going to affect the APA benefit. It will start to affect the APA benefit later, but in this scenario, it doesn't. So they're still getting their SSI check, which means they're still eligible for Medicaid. They're still getting their APA check benefit and their income. And so at the very bottom, it shows the total income, and they are so much better off working than they are with just those public benefits that aren't really enough to live on, right? So that's just a quick scenario because I think it's really powerful to be able to show people that you can work and not lose your benefits completely. So many people have waivers and they need that Medicaid to be able to qualify for the waiver, right? And waiver services. So super important to kind of be able to see that. It has a lot more impact. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the slideshow. So we did the calculation scenario. I want to talk about one work incentive briefly. How am I doing for time here? Okay, there is one really powerful work incentive for transition age youth that's called student earned income exclusion. This applies to students who are under the age of 22 and who are still regularly attending school. And they will exclude up to $2,040 per month. They won't count it at all, right? So for people who want to get out and go work with DVR and get a job and try work, right? They can work during the summer months, and then it's not counted usually. I mean, unless they make more than that, in which case then they would start to count the amount that goes over that. They would count about half of that, right? So it's $2,040 per month with a maximum of $8,230 per year. So that's, that's about 4 months worth of work. They could work in the summer and not exceed that and still get some good work experience and not lose their benefits. So that's an excellent work incentive. It's not an automatic one. It has to be applied for. There is a form and you have to fill out the name and address of the school and you have to answer a bunch of questions and then Social Security has to approve it. So this is just something that I want people to be aware of with their transition age kiddos. Okay, so we've got a question about IRWIs. Well, IRWIs are impairment related work expenses. And they have to be paid for out of pocket, not reimbursed by anybody, Medicaid or mom or dad or anybody, right? You have to have the receipt. They are not automatic either. They need to be approved by Social Security. They have to be related to the impairment and they need to be necessary for work. So an example of an IRWI there's a lot of things. You can actually Google SSA IRWE and go into the Social Security work site. They usually give some examples there. But we've had people apply for IRWIs, even something like public transportation, right? Getting to work. They're not able to drive. They don't have any other way. And so it's something that is needed for their disability, for their impairment, as well as it's needed for work. It could be something like a specialized wheelchair that maybe isn't covered any other way. That would be another, any kind of equipment or tool or anything really that is related to the impairment and is necessary for work and isn't covered by insurance. So they'll also only cover a fair market value. So if you purchase a piece of equipment that's super expensive, and there's other models available type of thing, Social Security may not allow the full amount to be deducted. So that's what an IRWI is. That's another work incentive. There's quite a few work incentives. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to cover them here tonight at all. So I just tried to pick the highlights and the ones I thought would be the most important for you guys to hear about. There's a couple of other scenarios with SSI work incentives. The Alaska Permanent Fund and Alaska Native Dividends are counted differently in Alaska than they are anywhere else. Obviously, we don't have those anywhere else in the United States. I've had people who have called the Social Security 800 number, and when the Social Security person says, oh, well, do you have any other income? And they go, oh yeah, I have my permanent fund dividend. And then they take that into account and they go, oh, well, you're not eligible for benefits. Yes, they are. The people in the lower 48 don't have a clue about this. And so they give the wrong answer and they may actually cut off benefits, and you have to call Social Security, the local offices, and just say, hey, fix this. So the permanent fund dividend is not counted for the first 4 months. It's not counted as it's not counted as income in the first month it's received, and it's not counted as a resource in the following 3 months. So for a period of up to 4 months, Social Security does not count the PFD if it's put into your bank account and then sits in your bank account. Now, after that, they do. So there's more information on that. I don't have time to go into it, but you can also Google that. If you just do SSA Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend, you should be able to find that program manual rule. Okay, and for Alaska Native Dividends, anything in excess of $2,000 is counted as income, but they don't count dividends as income up to that amount in the beginning if it's from a Native corporation. And again, you can also Google that. There's so much information. I'm sorry, I'd love to give you guys a ton more information, but it's kind of hard because some of it applies and some of it doesn't. And sometimes it's just too much. It's like you don't need it all at once, right? So it's really best just to contact me and contact the WIPA project. So if you have a person who's receiving any kind of Social Security and they start working, then contact me. We'll do a benefits analysis and benefits counseling, and we'll continue to work with you as things change, as people start to earn more money or change jobs or get promotions. Every step of the way that something might change, you just have to reach out to us and we can continue to answer questions and do the benefits counseling. Another important work incentive that I just want to touch on is the Medicaid. I know how important that is to people with SSI. Even if you earn enough money that the SSI check goes to zero, there is, which is called the break-even point. There is a work incentive for Medicaid called 1619B. They're supposed to put you into it automatically. So it's an automatic work incentive and you don't even notice the difference. But I always tell people, if your check goes to zero, call the Medicaid office, make sure you're in the right category of Medicaid. Because if they put you into a different category of Medicaid, it could be a category that actually kicks you out of SSI, even though you don't need to be kicked out of SSI yet, right? So, and again, if you're earning that kind of money, you should be in contact with a benefits counselor. So contact me. I do want to say there are two ways to get free benefits counseling in Alaska. One of them is through DVR. If a person is working with DVR, then DVR will provide benefits summary analysis, which is a written report, and benefits counseling about how wages would impact their benefit. Once DVR has closed the case, then the WIPA project can kind of take that person on to provide follow-up assistance as needed. And like I said, as the person maybe starts to earn more money or gets a promotion or whatever the case may be, we can provide that follow-up once DVR has closed the case. And then of course, if you're not a DVR client, you can come directly to the WIPA project for benefits counseling. So that's important to know. I'm going to kind of skip through that. I know I had to share everything really fast, so I apologize for that, but does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Larissa, but I think we used your partner, Debbie Grimes.
Yes.
And I can assure everybody that the experience we had was very beneficial and very enlightening. Apparently, you guys have access to more detailed information than we were able to get access to, and realize that we hit an upper limit of benefits, and which cascades pretty quickly, like you mentioned. So I would encourage anybody to contact your organization.
Yeah, and unfortunately, right now, we're having a real problem with our Social Security offices in Anchorage and Fairbanks, which is something I'm working out with Social Security from on the national level. And I actually had to go to Baltimore on the East Coast to the higher ups at Social Security, because we have been dead in the water. We've been trying to get benefit verification to be able to provide the services that we normally provide and that we're paid to provide. And we haven't been able to do it because we can't get the benefit verification from the local Fairbanks or Anchorage office. Southeast is doing great. They're fine. They're not having any problems, but we are having real situation with the other two offices. So I'm hoping that clears up really soon. If it doesn't, you will probably hear from your benefits counselor that there's a delay. So yeah. And then, like I said, just contact us if a job is going to start. Contact us as soon as you know what the job is and how much they're going to be earning. Contact us, because that's when we can actually provide that benefits counseling. We can sometimes provide benefits counseling before the job, but it's really hard because then you're not dealing in facts. You're not dealing in for sure information, right? So you're just kind of like, well, what if I earn this amount? And it's real hard to do benefits counseling on that. We can do it, we do it, but.
Well, and there's so much complexity in it because there's breakpoints where if you exceed those, different things, boundary conditions happen at that point. And then if you hit it again, then you're immediately disqualified from SSDI, and gets pretty complicated.
Yeah, it does. And it doesn't help that we have two different programs. that each have completely different rules. So yeah, so my contact information is here. I wanted to talk about the microenterprise grant. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to do that because this is such a resource for Alaskans. It is a grant that's provided by the Alaska Mental Health Trust, and it is for Alaska Mental Health Trust beneficiaries. There are 5 beneficiary groups, if you're not familiar with them. They are anybody with a developmental disability, anybody with mental health illness, and traumatic brain injury, and alcohol or substance abuse disorder, and then dementia. So those are the 5 trust beneficiary groups. If someone falls into one of those groups, they would be considered a trust beneficiary and they would be eligible to apply for this grant. So a microenterprise is defined as a small business that costs less than $35,000 to start up and needs fewer than 5 employees. There is a maximum $10,000 lifetime request for money, but you can apply for as little as $500. We have people apply in all sorts of increments. And so it's sorry, I'm going to go back. It does require a dollar for dollar match, and there's some documentation that has to happen along with the application. The application process itself is kind of lengthy, so we always recommend that you start earlier on it rather than later. We have 2 application deadline periods each year. We also work really closely with DVR on this one, which was part of why I asked Devon that question about self-employment. Remember, Devon, I asked you that. It's because we actually send or recommend anyway, that people who are interested in this, we actually recommend they go to you first, that they go to DVR and I have told them, go in with at least a rough draft of a business plan. Because if you go in and you just say, I want to start my own business, that's not helpful. So I try to let them know they need to go in and be as prepared as possible if they're serious about starting a business, so that when you are working with them, you're not starting at, below ground level kind of thing. So yeah, so we partner with DVR, and the reason that that's important is because when DVR funds a person's business and then they come to the microenterprise grant to apply for grant funds, we will accept that funding of DVRs as dollar for dollar match. Okay, so that's super powerful, super powerful. We have people from DVR who serve on the grant review committee. We just actually had a grant review today, and we funded 7 people, 7 Alaskans businesses were funded today. And it's just a wonderful feeling to see these people with such creative ideas and talents, and they're working really hard. And it's so cool to be able to see what they can do with that support, both from DVR and from this grant. So pretty powerful. I wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. And of course, I manage that grant as well. So same contact information if you have anyone that you know of that is a trust beneficiary that would be interested in self-employment goal, work with DVR and then come and apply for this grant. It's just a really powerful way to help get people going. So, and different people need different levels of support. The video we just watched was Rebecca, and she needed a lot of support in the beginning, and she got a lot of support. She continues to get a lot of support. But it's been amazing to watch her grow over the last several years in her role. And I mean, it's just fantastic.
I actually have a question. You may not want to answer it, and we can do it via email. And that's with adult public assistance. Some folks get it and some don't. And we were taken down from some amount to $1. They said you had to have it in order to keep Medicaid. And then all of a sudden, that was taken away also, and I never understood.
So did you lose the Medicaid benefit?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it really is based on income level, and for adult public assistance, they follow the same rules as SSI. Some people who get SSDI or child disability benefit, which your son may get, sometimes it's a low enough benefit that they actually are eligible for that state benefit as well. So even though they're not on SSI, usually SSI and APA go hand in hand, but occasionally we do see people that are on the Title II SSDI or child disability benefit. That group will have a low enough check that they then are eligible for that state supplement, adult public assistance. So, and then as they start earning money, that goes away pretty quickly.
Thank you all and have a great evening.
All right. Thanks for inviting us.